This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Welcome to The Speaking Show, brought to you today by our sponsor, Linda Hollander. No, wait a second. Linda's not our sponsor. She's our guest. Linda Hollander, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
But you are the sponsorship guru. And for those of folks that might have been hiding under a rock or think that sponsorship is for the Indy 500 or for the NFL, talk about very foundationally, what does sponsorship mean to independent speakers, experts, authors, and consultants? What is that?
The definition of sponsorship is connecting a company to people who buy things. So as a speaker, you can get sponsors because you have what's called an audience, and sponsors like that. Should I tell you how I started getting sponsors as a speaker?
Yes, let's talk about your whole backstory. That'd be great.
I would love that because when I got sponsors, nobody knew me. I had no experience. I had no following. I had my parents and I had my brother-in-law on my subscriber list. That was about it. If I could have put my cat on there, I would have. But what I did was I sold them on the concept. So as far as becoming a speaker, I took a different road because everybody told me, well, start at the Chamber of Commerce and the animal circuit, the Lions Club and the Royal Order of Water Buffaloes. And and here's another thing it told me, David. They said, wait 10 years. And I didn't want to wait 10 years. So what I did was I started my own event and I booked myself as the keynote speaker. So I wanted to start a women's small business expo because starting my own business got me out of the poverty trap and it got me out of an abusive relationship. And I work with my best friend and we created a multi-million-dollar business knowing absolutely nothing. I was an art major. She was a cinema major. But we did it because we had to, and it transformed my life. I was able to travel the world. I dumped that abusive boyfriend. I married my husband. We've been married almost 23 years. And, I was able to pay down that debt that was absolutely choking me. And, I want to teach other women to do that. So that's how I started my speaking career, was being a keynote speaker for an event that I created. And then I wasn't a struggling speaker anymore. I was the founder of the Women's Small Business Expo, and I got a lot of gigs from it. But let's talk about the sponsorship angle, because I started looking at the cost of putting an event together, and I'm sure you've done this too. And I said, wow, I can't afford this. How can I have a company pay for it? So I looked on the internet and there's these things called sponsors, and they'll underwrite your speaking. They'll underwrite your event. If you're an author, they'll underwrite your book or your projects or your nonprofits. And my very, very first sponsors were Bank of America, IBM, and Walmart. And I sold them on the concept because I'd never done anything really. And that's what you can do as a speaker.
Wow. So, man, so much good stuff right there. I mean, let me start with the last thing you said, which is you got these gigantic sponsors right out of the gate. It wasn't like you started small and say, hey, the local department store, the local family-owned department store, let's start with you. It was Walmart, it was IBM, it was Bank of America. How did you get from zero to hero in essentially one step where these big sponsors would even pay attention to you, or what's the door opening strategy that you use that we might learn from?
Well, I'll tell you about the first sponsor I ever got, which is Bank of America. So I'm in Los Angeles, California, and guess what we're known for? Traffic jams, right? So I'm in this traffic jam. I'm hot. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And I look up and I see a billboard for Bank of America. And I said, oh my God, what if Bank of America can sponsor me? But then I came back to my home office and I self-sabotaged and I said, they're never going to want to talk to me. I'm just this little frizzy-haired Jewish girl working from a kitchen, and they're going to reject me. And I really don't want to be any part of that. But my mission was so strong to help entrepreneurs that I pushed it down for about 2 weeks. And then I started calling. I picked up that phone. The phone looked like it weighed 250 pounds, but I did pick it up. And one person led me to another, and I got the guy who could greenlight the sponsorship. And then he wanted to see me. Now, at that time, I had a really bad clunker car. It was more rust than paint. I had one good suit. So I put on the one good suit. I parked 2 blocks down so they wouldn't see my car. And I was so nervous. Oh my God, thank God there was a desk between us. My knees were knocking. And he says, yeah, we'll sponsor you. And it was a 5-figure deal. I can't reveal exactly how much it was, but it was a 5-figure deal. My very first sponsorship. It wasn't a few $100s. And, when I walked out, I did the happy dance. There is nothing like getting your first sponsor.
Let me ask you this, because I think there's a common misconception about sponsorship. I know there's also a couple different kinds of sponsorships. The way that I explain sponsorship, and I'm far from the guru because that's you, but I like to tell people it's like a triangle. So on one corner of the triangle is your sponsor. On the second corner of the triangle is some audience or group that they want to connect with or reconnect with or establish more visibility or credibility with. And then at the third corner of the triangle is little old you.
Mm-hmm.
So you are not so much a speaker. You're not coming in with a training value proposition or an education value proposition. You're probably coming in with either sales, customer acquisition, customer retention, customer loyalty, or opening up new markets or launching a new initiative for that company. One example might be, let's say that we have a company who wants to get into Hispanic marketing. They want to market to the Latino population, and this is a big initiative for them. Well, if you happen to be a Hispanic speaker, expert, and you have some great content that would help a Hispanic audience or a Hispanic business owner audience, let's say, that bank or that consumer products company will want to talk to you because you are a conduit to a market that they want to reach. Did I get that anywhere near correct?
Oh my God, that was brilliant.
Okay.
I'm going to use that triangle reference.
So what are some other triangles? You mentioned obviously your own event, which I think is that the toughest or is that the easiest kind of sponsorship to get?
Well, sponsors really do like live events. And right now, it's a little bit weird with sponsorship because live events are not happening at this moment when we're taping this. But sponsors like events, but sponsors also like speakers. And here's the thing. If you are a speaker, every time you speak, whether it's your event or whether it's somebody else's platform, that is considered a live event. So if you're a speaker, you're always doing events, even virtual.
Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. Now, let me also ask you, because I think sometimes people think this is harder than it is in one way, and they also may think it's easier than it is in some other way. So our mutual friend, Mark LeBlanc, a few years ago, I think he made some outreach to Chase Bank. Chase Bank at that time was doing a big push to get more small business owners. They had a whole small business owner initiative. And Mark worked out a sponsorship deal, where they say, send me to 20 different cities, and it's going to be the Chase Bank Grow Your Business campaign or initiative. Mm-hmm. So Mark did not do his own event. Mark did not get the sponsor to sponsor an existing event where he was speaking. Mark got Chase Bank to co-create an event where they were bringing all their banking customers and all their banking prospects into this event hosted by Chase. I think the logistics and the arrangements and the food and the hotel and the venue paid for by Chase. But Mark was the outside expert that was the gift. Mm-hmm. He was the outside expert that was, hey, we're not just here to sell you checking accounts and CDs and loans. We really want to help you grow your business. So meet our basically mouthpiece. We love Mark, but basically mouthpiece as far as Chase is concerned. Mark is going to give you 90 minutes of awesome, and you're going to feel much better about doing business with Chase. You're going to give us more of your money. You're going to give us more of your referrals, etc. Is that something where we can go to a sponsor and say, let's create a whole series of events just for you? I've got nothing outside to offer you, but I'd like to co-create an event with you as the sponsor and me as the objective value provider.
Yeah, that is totally right. But you are going to have to come to them with the idea because, your sponsor is busy. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about your speaking career. You are thinking about that. So come to them with an idea like that. I have a client, her name is Cynthia, and she teaches what's called internet safety to families because the internet is great, but your kid can get in a lot of trouble on the internet. A 16-year-old thinks they're talking to another 16-year-old, but it's not. It's a 41-year-old in his mother's basement. So she teaches families how to be safe on the internet and prevent a lot of tragedies we read about. And you know who her sponsor was? Verizon. Verizon sent her on a tour. Now, Verizon makes a lot of money off of the internet, but they also want to teach responsibility, just like a beer commercial. And at the end of the beer commercial, it says drink responsibly.
Yeah, that's really, really great. Now, I want to go a little bit behind the curtain with your business. You got these sponsorships. And I think you and I have this next thing in common where we want to do something. We make all kinds of mistakes. We finally figure out the magic combination, the secret formula. We perfect it. We implement it for ourselves. Then we start teaching it and sharing it with clients. So tell us a little bit when you went from, hey, I'm getting all these sponsorships. When did the light bulb moment happen saying, I could teach other people how to do these sponsorships? And did that start with a course? Did that start with one-on-one coaching? How did you get into the empire that you're running today?
Okay. Well, it started with demand because I did the Women's Small Business Expo for 10 years. And on my deathbed, I will be so proud of the work that I did because women met their perfect business partner. Women got the pieces of the puzzle that they needed to run their own multi-million-dollar business, make better choices, send their kids to better schools. And it was all because of sponsors. And after the first three, I got Microsoft and I got Staples and FedEx and Marriott Hotels and Health Net Insurance. But women would come to the event, but they'd keep asking me, Linda, how are you getting these sponsors? I thought you had to be a huge company. And I was always working from home, just me and the cat. So, so everybody kept asking me. And I said, that's where I have to go now. Now I have to teach people about how to get sponsors because there's not that many people out there doing it. So I started with one-on-one consulting. Then I developed a course. And then I developed a high-end program for people who want my company to do it for them. So we have the do-it-yourself, we have the done-for-you program, and then one-on-one mentorship.
So let's talk about Sponsor Concierge, because that is a really cool idea, a really cool service. What is that? How does it work? And we're going to put all these links and things towards the end. I'll ask you about where we can send people, and we'll have all the links under this episode. When you go to thespeakingshow.com, make sure to pick up all of Linda's website links and connections and all the cool things she has for you. But let's talk about Sponsor Concierge. What is that? How does it work? Why is it awesome?
Well, first of all, we've been doing it for 20 years, and I have actually been in the trenches. So I'm not teaching you vague theories. I'm teaching you things that actually work. I give you need to know information, not nice to know information, because most of my clients, they're like you. They're really busy. They want to get it done quickly, and they want to really get it done by somebody that they trust. So the first step is booking a sponsor strategy session with me. We go over what you need. We go over what you're doing, where you want to go with your speaking business. And, then we help create a success strategy for you and your sponsors.
Now, I think one mistake, I think I've heard you speak about this before. One mistake that a lot of people do when they're trying to figure this out on their own is they start too small. Let me repeat that. They start too small. They either go after too small of a potential sponsor or they ask for too little money where the sponsoring organization, like that's a rounding error on a daily spreadsheet somewhere, and it doesn't really register as something significant. Talk about that too big versus too small dilemma.
Okay, so let's talk about the sponsors. There's top tier sponsors and second tier sponsors. So let's talk about Bank of America. Bank of America is a top tier sponsor. They paid a lot of money to be top of mind, but there's probably a local community bank where you are that still has a lot of money and really needs you to get the word out for them. Bank of America, to tell you the truth, didn't really need me to get the word out. Everybody knows Bank of America. But as you said, the reason that they wanted me was because I had a following of women business owners. And that was one of their initiatives, to get more business owners so they can make loans, because loans is really where it's at. That's the big profit center. So second tier sponsors are great. I had one sponsor called Evolution Insurance. Nobody has ever heard of them. And that's why they paid me as a sponsor. So go for the second tier as well as the top tier sponsors. I really advocate that. Now let's talk about the money. Now, I've seen sponsor proposals that ask for $150. You're telling your sponsor that it's really not worth their time and you have nothing of value to offer them. Sponsorship is kind of a team sport. You've got your champion in the company who really likes you, but then they have to convince other people in the company to give you a sponsor deal. It's not worth their time for $150. For $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, it's worth it. And, you're putting a really high price on your value.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about, I'm somewhat established, but far from a rock star. I think people, again, the assumption that you mentioned, like, oh, I have to be a rock star. Sometimes a sponsor will pay more and they'll pay more attention if you are very narrowly niched and very, very specialized and focused on the same exact area where they are very specialized and focused. So talk about the specialization versus kind of the general, oh, I have to be Oprah to get a sponsor. You do not have to be Oprah to get a sponsor, but talk about that, the value of the specific niche, either topic or industry where you might work, and then finding sponsors in that ecosystem.
All right. So let's go back to that definition of sponsorship. Connecting a company to people who buy things. Who are the people who buy things? That is your audience. That is your community. The more narrow you focus that, the better, because you can research it and you could give sponsors all this beautiful numbers of the buying power of your specific group. For instance, women business owners, where I started, women make or influence over 85% of the purchasing decisions in America. Women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men. I researched that. So you could get so many wonderful, compelling statistics like that if you narrow your focus and narrow your audience.
And let's also talk about, besides live events, or in addition to live events, because live events will come back. Those come back in a little different way. But I think electronically now, I think we're much more savvy about, hey, I've got a sponsor. Maybe the sponsor could sponsor my podcast. Maybe the sponsor could sponsor a video series. Maybe the sponsor could sponsor some webinars that I'm doing. How tech savvy or how digital have you seen some of these sponsorships get in recent years?
Oh, I've helped a lot of podcasters get sponsors because that's really the way to monetize your podcast. I mean, you could get little ad buys here and there, but you're still going to be struggling unless you get, big money into your podcast. So a podcast could get sponsored, YouTube channel, blogs, virtual events right now, you could get sponsored. Now, I'm telling you, with a virtual event, you really need to amp up the benefits because sponsors aren't getting what they can get with a live event. They can't shake hands with their core consumers. They can't be recognized from the platform. And they can't have an exhibitor booth. So you need to create that in your virtual event. So you just got to amp up those benefits. And the best way to get the most value is to combine a virtual event with a live event in that order, because at your virtual event, you can promote the live event and increase your attendance. And even if your live event is next year, it doesn't matter. Sponsors love long leads and long-term deals.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. I'm tuning in to some of our listeners' mental response to what you're saying, and I'm picking up some imposter syndrome. Oh, Linda, who am I? I just have this little business. I just have this, I'm a little consulting. I don't have a gigantic email list. I don't have 80,000 followers on Twitter. Why would a sponsor want to connect with me when I'm just doing kind of good work and, on a somewhat small scale? Obviously, if everyone thought that way, there'd be no sponsorships ever happening. And as you well know, sponsorships are happening all the time for some very big dollar amounts. How do we overcome that imposter syndrome, or what success stories can you share with someone who came to you and perhaps initially said, oh, Linda, I don't know, I'm too small email list, small fan base, I'm really a nobody. And they turned out to be a rock star in a certain way?
All right. Well, first of all, that is my favorite question. I get calls all day and everybody says, oh, who's going to sponsor little old me? I'm just getting started. I'm in development. I'm pre-revenue. That's a lot of who I work with because it's so similar to my story. And there was nobody to really help me when I started on this particular journey. Like I said, you can sell them on the concept. So I'll tell you about a guy who came to me. He had a blog for dog lovers, but he was just starting it and he really didn't have any following. There are no magic numbers out there. Everybody thinks there are. Like when I get so many Twitter followers or, whatever, then I could go out and get sponsors. No, no, no. So he had a blog for dog lovers and he really wanted sponsors for it. So what we did is we got him some dog food sponsors and all that, and that's good. But we kind of went mainstream with it and we got him Black and Decker because guess what? Black and Decker makes small appliances and they make those little dust busters that you could use in your car for the pet hair. So you want to kind of go mainstream when you're looking for your sponsors. Don't just stay narrowly in your category of pet supplies and pet foods like this guy, because sooner or later, one of the sponsors may ask for exclusivity and then you're kind of painted yourself into a corner. So that's kind of an example of who we work with and the kind of sponsors that are possible.
I think this is something that you teach, but I think also it's worth mentioning to people. When you're looking at an industry, there's sort of a usual suspects strategy, meaning that if you see a company's logo at a conference, at another conference, at an association, on a website, in a certain industry, you realize, well, these folks, they sponsor a lot of things. They show up at trade shows, they sponsor webinars, their logo is on various websites and blogs and, portals, communities, et cetera, where that industry gathers. Is that a good indicator that that sponsor might be more receptive to talking to us if we do see their logo in lots of different places in that industry?
It's an excellent way to get sponsors. Look at what people are doing that are similar to you. I know you're unique and there's nobody like you, but there's things out there that are similar. See who their sponsors are. And people ask me, but Linda, hasn't their budget all been spent? Absolutely not. And as you said, you don't have to educate them about being in that particular space because they're already there. They're already spending a lot of sponsor money. So that's a great way to find your sponsors. Another way to find your sponsors is to look at who's doing advertising campaigns. If they're pouring a lot of money into a campaign, that's really a good potential target for sponsorship.
Final couple questions for you. You mentioned that as we're recording this, we are in the midst of this COVID-19 global crisis. I think a lot of sponsor companies are having a hard time figuring out, how do I sell? How do I reach out to our current clients? How do I reach out to new prospects? Is this tone deaf? Is this weird? Would you say that now is a fantastic time to connect with a sponsor, with the value prop being, I know that your sales team is having a hard time trying to figure out how to sell, how to upsell, how to cross-sell, how to get in front of prospects. How about you sponsor me and you don't sell them anything, but you give them something. And what you give them is me and my program and my value prop and the transformation that I can help you provide. So you get in front of them with a give instead of with a sales pitch, and they will remember you and they will come back to you, and that will spark more and better sales conversations than if you try and bust down their door right now. So sponsorship as a sales strategy, is that a good idea to sell that to a sponsor in this environment?
It is a good idea. And right now, you've got to have what we call cause marketing. Cause marketing is a company showing that they're giving back to the community. So you have to have that in your sponsor proposal. How do you give back? There's something called the halo effect. And the halo effect is if a company sponsors you and you're doing something good, they look good. And that is so important right now. Also, right now is the most important time to do your sponsor proposal. If you've been thinking about, hey, I should get a proposal together, I'd like to try to get sponsors, Now is the time to get your proposal together just because we have more time.
Which leads us right to, well, Linda, how do I get a proposal? What does it look like? What should be in it? How do I format it? And you have all kinds of fabulous resources and tools. And like you said, some do it yourself, some done with you, some done for you. Let's hit some people with the links. Let's hit people up rather with some links of where they can go to connect with some of your resources and trainings and programs.
Well, in the spirit of giving that we were just talking about, I have a gift for you. So if you go to successwithsponsors.com, you're going to get the number one secret to getting sponsors. So go to successwithsponsors.com. Now, there's also a place there where you could request a sponsor strategy session, and that's where you and me one-on-one rock and roll, figure out how to get you some great sponsors.
Tremendous. So 2 final questions. Final question number 1 is, if people were to take one central idea from our sponsorship conversation today, what do you hope that central concept might be?
The concept is hold your head up high. I don't care if you're just starting. I don't care if you've got a concept. Know that you have value to offer your sponsors. Figure out a way to get sponsor funding because, man, we got to get funding and revenue into our speaking businesses any way we can. And that's when a shift happened for me, when I followed what you said, David, and I thought of my speaking as a business. And business needs revenue. Business needs profit. It's not a dirty word. And that's where sponsorships come in.
Brilliant. Now, final question is, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Linda Hollander brilliance? We can send them the Sponsor Concierge, but let's also, do you want people to connect with you on LinkedIn or email you, or what's the best way for them to get more?
It's best just to go to the website because I look at every request I get on my website and I don't have to look everywhere on my social media landscape. So just go to successwithsponsors.com.
That is the global headquarters, the entry point to everything sponsor related.
That's it.
All right, Linda Hollander, thank you for being with us. This was tremendously valuable, especially at this moment. But I think sponsorship is an evergreen strategy that good times, bad times, and regular times, crazy times, sponsorship, having that in your toolkit is like buying insurance for your business. And thank you for being with us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.